Hello and welcome back. It is Jen with Aging Advantage. And today we are going to be doing our third part of our series on housing insecurity and also home safety. Today we're going to be focusing on the home safety aspect. So we're going to be going over what are some different things, that we need to be aware of when we are looking at, having more certainty and feeling safe in our home environment to help us kind of age in place better. We're also going to be looking at what are some different resources. Again, this is going to be a get your pen and paper moment again today. I'm going to give you guys some resources that you have access to as well to help you kind of navigate some of these things that you might need to put in place potentially. So, again, just sit back, relax, get comfy, and I'm excited for you guys to, learn with us today. Get whatever you're drinking, and let's get started. First, I want to tell you guys too, just to remind you all really quickly. So I'm with Aging Advantage. So Aging Advantage is a non-for-profit here in the St. Louis area. We support St. Louis, kind of the surrounding area, but please know that all of this information can absolutely be shared with anyone really around the country. And so please do that. If you think that it would be helpful to someone that you know, someone you love, you're friends with, or that you just support as well, that doesn't necessarily live here in St. Louis, perfect, totally fine. Please share this information with them because all the different areas typically have agencies that, like that we have here in St. Louis, like SLAE, the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, but typically a lot of the areas, wherever they might be, would also have an agency like this or other non-for-profits that are local to them that they could engage with and receive support from. So please know that, yes, feel free to share these with other people that you think it might be helpful for. So again, get cozy and let's dive in and learn about home safety. So, okay, today we're going to be shifting and talking specifically on more detail about home safety. And, especially to me, like this is an area where it is super important and often overlooked. And I think, in the medical side of life and the medical support side of life, a lot of times the people that will get, I will say, kind of like deployed, if you will, to help support in these areas, a lot of times are going to be your occupational therapist. You're going to hear that a fair amount. A physical therapist is somebody who just kind of helps you with your physical body kind of conditions, helps to help you rebuild your strength, get mobility back, and things like that. Whereas an occupational therapist is going to be somebody that is going to kind of be more focused on your external environment and how you interact with it. Like I said, physical therapist is going to be more about your body and how do we strengthen and help correct that. Occupational therapist is going to be kind of, again, focused more on how do you do like you'll hear them sometimes called ADLs or activities of daily living. How do you kind of navigate your life, if you will, and lifestyle in the environment that is around you? And how do you do that more smoothly? And today, as we are going through more safely. So let's talk about home safety because this is an area where taking action can really make a real difference very quickly. And, the stakes are high, let's face it, and enough that it like actually deserves far more careful attention. So let's start with falls. And a lot of us know, falls are the leading cause of injury, especially as we age. And also injury related death among older adults in the United States. Every year, millions of older adults experience a fall. And many of those falls happen right at home. A lot of them, unfortunately, happen in the bathroom. We'll talk about that one in a second. On the stairs, in the kitchen, and in the bedroom, or in the middle of the night. So, the in the bathroom part, from a doctor perspective, or also sometimes in the bedroom, etc., or same thing on the stairs. So let's kind of break some of those down. So the in the bathroom part, when someone goes to the bathroom, there is a natural shift and decrease a lot of times in their blood pressure. So you go to the bathroom, you're on the toilet or the commode, you go to the bathroom, and then when you're finished, you stand up quickly, and then you start moving and you start walking, right? Well, again, you can have that drop in blood pressure immediately that can happen that then is going to sometimes, make someone dizzy, make someone extremely lightheaded, not feel stable on their feet. And, sometimes people then can even actually pass out from such an extreme drop in blood pressure like that, amongst other things. So that is a extremely commonplace that we, see things happening, the on and off the commode part. Also in the bathroom, what do we have going on? We have wet everywhere sometimes. So, we can have water that can get on the floor. That can cause the floor to be wet and slippery in the shower. We obviously have a wet situation in there. So when you add wet floor plus, slippery soap or slippery shampoo, etc., on the floor of the shower, you can also get slips and falls for sure in the shower as well. Also, sometimes, again, how in the very part we talked about rugs. There are rugs usually like all over the place in the bathroom. And especially if there is, a space that is a smaller confined space, and you have an older person that's kind of doing the shuffle walk, as I call it, maybe they're not like fully picking up their feet really well when they're picking up and stepping and picking up and stepping. They're kind of shuffling around. They're going to be more prone to catching one of the rugs with their feet and tripping and falling. So that's going to be potentially a huge risk. Also, in terms of bedroom, like we discussed a little bit with the bathroom scenario, but again, some of these things are called like BPH or benign positional hypertension. You might hear that word getting thrown out, and that's what I'm talking about with like the sit stand scenario, and somebody's blood pressure dropping. That can happen in the bedroom. If you, like, let's say you're laying down and you're sleeping, and then like I said, you got to go to the bathroom, in the middle of the night, in the morning, whatever. And you're going to go from laying down to sitting up really quick. And for some people, like just that act in and of itself, again, can cause them to feel dizzy or lightheaded, or whatever, unstable. But especially for somebody who goes from laying down to sitting to standing up really fast, again, absolutely, people can have, again, drop in blood pressure, or, they're going to get dizzy, their balance is going to get off, etc., and they're going to be a fall risk. So just being cognizant of those things, making sure if you have a walker and this is something you're prone to, having the walker right there beside the bed, and also making sure you go slowly from laying down to slowly sitting up. And then when you're sitting up, you're going to sit there for sometimes even a minute or two. or maybe even a little bit longer to get your blood pressure and, all the things kind of new homeostasis with your new position of being upright. Same thing again. You're going to go from seated to standing up slowly, and then you're going to hold still. You're going to stand there and hold on to your walker or cane or, something in front of you. And you're just going to stand there again for a minute or two or a little bit longer, maybe, to make sure that you feel okay. You feel like you got your balance, got your grips before you start taking off and walking. So things to massively pay attention to. In the middle of the night, make sure you have all the stuff off the floor and out of the way, especially in the path to going to the bathroom, or that you have like night lights properly set up as well so you can see what you're doing. Or maybe if you wear glasses, that you have your glasses right there accessible on the nightstand so that when you get up to go to the bathroom, step one, put your glasses on so you can see where you're going and all the things. But again, also those stairs, you got to navigate your balance and, and your muscle coordination and again, all the things, and you just need to take it slow. Another reality for people as they age is that sometimes when we move, and essentially like also, when we're going up and down the stairs or doing more physically demanding tasks, sometimes depending on if you have heart issues, lung issues, etc., your oxygen saturation levels can drop on activity. And so we'll see that sometimes as well. And that can even happen sometimes for people moving, navigating and walking from one room to another room. But especially when somebody's trying to go upstairs, it can make people very winded, especially if they're kind of deconditioned. So again, oxygen level drops, you're going to feel dizzy, lightheaded, not have your balance, and then boom, you're a fall risker also too. Your muscles just kind of can give out because you're not as strong. So make sure you are holding on to the handrail and again, take it slow, take it chill, go up a couple steps and just stop for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you need to do. Get your grips, to get, your breath and all the things, and then feel okay. And then go up a couple more steps. You don't have to be like, Speedy Gonzalez up the stairs. Just go slow and take your time. So that will, help with falls sometimes as well. But there's also something important too, is falls aren't just accidents. So a lot of times, again, these falls are preventable. And home environment plays a huge role. So like we talked about, loose rugs that aren't like stuck down to the floor that can slide under somebody's foot. Also, besides you tripping over the rug, sometimes rugs can like, like slide all over the floor. You step on the rug slides and so do you, and you were biting it and now you fell and you're on the floor. Poor lighting, like as we discussed, in the middle of the night, but even during the day, like poor lighting in hallways especially can be crucial. And lighting is even more key, especially as people age, because when you start factoring in these other issues that happen with the eyes, like glaucoma, like cataracts, and all these other various different things, everything in that person's environment, in that sight field that they have, is going to become more dim, and not as bright. So you need to be aware that you need your environment a lot brighter from a light perspective. So please be cognizant of that. Again, bathtubs without grab bars. You want to make sure that the bathtub or the shower has a grab bar. Bonus points if it can have a actual, seat in it, or you can put a little shower seat chair in it. That's even better, potentially. So cluttered pathways. Again, we want to have a clear walking pathway from over here to over there. Sometimes, patients and people as they age, They can tend to kind of get a little hoarder-ish, where they start hoarding things and we got a lot of boxes and a lot of stuff because they don't necessarily have the energy. Um, or the mental capacity to go through some of these things or make those executive decisions to get rid of things, and so stuff starts to clutter and collect, etc. But we have to make sure, again, from a safety perspective, those things are out of the way so that we can walk. Again, we want to make sure our stairs are going to have sturdy railings to hold on to, or like we talked about in the very, very first session, is also too having, potentially you might need one of those, like I call it the stair ride chair, but one of those chairs that are motorized that has the track that goes up and down the stairs. So you get in the seat, the bottom of the stairs, clip yourself in, you ride the chair, literally like up the stairs to the top, you get off, and then vice versa. When you come down, you clip yourself in, you ride the chair down the stairs, you clip yourself up. Sometimes you might need one of those as well. So that is something, again, where you can kind of navigate the stairs also a little bit more safely that way. But these are all modifiable hazards, right? They can be fixed. So, and fixing them can absolutely prevent a fall that could have absolutely changed a person's life for the worse. So, what can you do? So, we're going to start here. So, step one, get out your pen. No. Pen alert. No. Step one, you're going to start with a walkthrough of your home, or ask someone you trust to do it with you, if you're the person living in the home. Look for those loose rugs and remove them or secure them with non-slip backing so they stay put on the floor. Make sure every staircase has a solid handrail. And again, bonus points if you want to put the handrail on both sides of your stairs. You don't have to just have it on one side, have it on both sides so you can hang on both sides. Install grab bars in the bathroom, near the toilet, and also in the shower or tub. Make sure your hallways and your stairways are well lit, and again, the stairway being well lit, super important again, but also consider night lights, like we discussed, for the path from the bathroom to the bedroom or the hallway or anywhere else you're going to have to navigate, especially in the middle of the night. And keep walkways clear and also stairs clear of clutter and cords or anything else that could possibly catch your foot, especially that you might not see. And if you have a pet, a cat or a dog or something, make sure that if possible, or if you have grandkids, that like small grandkids that live with you that have toys out everywhere, again, whether it's human toys, even a little kid human toys, or if it's pet toys, make sure those things are out of the way, especially like at night, before you go to bed if possible, so that you don't accidentally stumble and trip on those things. So beyond your environment, fall prevention also includes our bodies. Like we talked about a little bit earlier with the going to the bathroom commode situation, or also the getting up too fast from laying down in bed to standing up and walking. So fall prevention can include your body. Talk to your doctor about whether any of your medications, this is also key, might affect your balance or make you dizzy, which can absolutely happen. Vision also plays a huge role in fall risk. So, I will ask, when is the last time you got your eyes checked? And regular exercise can also particularly play a huge role in improving your balance and your strength. And those are some of the most powerful fall prevention tools that we have, honestly. Now, let's talk about emergency planning. So this is something people often put off because it feels overwhelming and because it involves thinking about scenarios that we'd rather like to just not really think about, especially ahead of time if we don't have to. But Having a plan in place before an emergency happens is one of the most important things you can do for your own safety and also for the safety of your household. So, an emergency plan should include a few things. So, first, know your evacuation routes. So, in a fire, in a flood, in any situation that requires you to leave your home quickly, do you know how to get out? And specifically, if you have mobility limitations, or again, any of these barriers, like you can't do steps, but maybe your bedroom is upstairs, how are you going to get downstairs? If there's a fire that starts, upstairs and you got to get down quickly, how's that going to go? Maybe that's where you discussed, all right, you sit on your butt on the stairs and I don't want to say like bump down the stairs, carefully, two hands and your butt, but maybe navigate down the stairs, all the way down on your butt instead of trying to, again, slowly, carefully, instead of trying to go, physically walk down the stairs as fast as possible or something. But nevertheless, what does that look like? And have you thought through that and how that would really work? Second, have an emergency kit. At minimum, this is going to include water, non-perishable food, medications especially, copies of important documents, flashlight, a phone charger, possibly some cash in there as well. And third, you want to have a communication plan. So who would you contact in terms of if there was an emergency, or who would contact you potentially? Make sure the people in your life know how to reach you and know how to check on you. And I think this is an interesting one, especially with the technology that we have nowadays, right? It is so wild because so many of us don't even know some of our own family members. Like, we don't even know like our parents' phone numbers anymore, or our kids' phone numbers anymore, because we just get on our phone and we just say like call mom, or whatever we do, or we just push the button, boop boop boop, and now we're calling our daughter. So sometimes I think even just in that emergency kit, taking those important people's phone numbers or resources that you might need, or again, the phone number to your pharmacy or something like that, and writing it down physically and sticking it in there, might not be a bad idea. Or again, having those phone numbers with you also written down, I think like in your purse or in your wallet, etc., and just having them with you at all times, no matter what, bonus points, is a great plan. So again, another cool thing too that I thought about that would be helpful for a lot of people as well is please register with your local emergency services if you have mobility limitations or medical needs that would affect your ability to evacuate. So many communities have special needs registries for people exactly like for this purpose. So third, we're going to talk about scam prevention. And I know this feels like a topic that comes up a lot, especially as you age, because scammers are relentless and older people are disproportionately targeted. So phone scams, email scams, fake Medicare representatives, etc., grandparent scams, prize scams, like, we all remember the sweepstakes days, are all tactics that keep changing, but the goal is always the same, to really separate you away from your money or your personal information or both, and hand them over to someone that should not have that information or should not have your money. So some basic rules worth repeating here are: never give out your social security number to anyone. In particular, especially not if they're, if they're not, a direct medical provider for sure, and that. Don't give out your Medicare number or any financial account information to anyone who contacts you first, whether it's by phone, email, text, etc. And even if you receive a phone call from someone claiming to be with a government agency, hang up. Don't answer, any of the questions they have, and call the official number for that government agency yourself. So you call into them, because legitimate organizations do not pressure you to make immediate decisions, or they don't demand gift card by, or payment by gift card or wire transfer, cryptocurrency, etc. If something feels wrong, you got to kind of trust that feeling. So again, please talk to your family or trusted friends, etc., about scams, because if you aren't able really like to protect yourself, you need to have people and things in place, and people who are in your corner who are watching out for these things for you. And that can be some of the best, defenses there are out there. So finally, in this category, we're going to talk about different like home modifications that you guys can do. So we touched on this content a little bit in terms of like fall prevention, but I want to just expand on it a little bit. So home modifications are changes made to the physical structure or layout of your home to make it safer and more accessible for your changing needs. So this can range again from inexpensive things like just adding lever door handles instead of like the turning knobs that might be hard for you to navigate and grip if you have, arthritis in your hands, etc. But also it can be like raising the toilet seat or installing again brighter light bulbs, etc. To larger projects, even like widening doorways, building a ramp, or converting a tub to a walk-in shower to make it a little more safer. But many of these modifications are available at no or low cost throughout home repair modification programs, like we discussed earlier. And some area agencies on aging can connect you to, again, like we talked about in the beginning of this, occupational therapists who will come to your home and assess your specific situation and help make personalized recommendations for you. And, I think one of the caveats here is just, again, to remember, like, you don't have to navigate all of this stuff, yourself alone whatsoever. And again, this is just I just kind of want to get to the slide again, just to have you guys kind of look over this again. So these are, again, some just different things again, and ideas like, like we talked about that, again, if any of these resonate, write them down. And then, let's next, we're going to talk about in just a second, like figure out how do we get a plan to actually be able to get some of these things corrected. So let's talk about planning ahead. And not because it's necessarily always fun to talk about, but because having these things in place will give you freedom, mental freedom as well, and help give you more certainty and calm and peace. Because when your affairs are in order, you get to focus on living your life rather than worrying about, what would happen if something, changed for you. And, let's start with trusted contacts. So one of the most valuable things you can do for yourself right now is really identify those people in your life that that you trust. And, some of those, might be family members, close friends, neighbors, a pastor, etc. But a lot of those people, again, are going to know you and kind of know your background, your history, and really are going to have your best interest at heart. And also, you have to think about too, who would you want to have be involved if something like did happen, right? So, you want to make these people know that, also too, let them know that they're in this role. Have a conversation with them. Tell them where to find your important documents. Make sure they know your medical conditions and the medications that you take. And if there's, no one in your life who fits that description right now, connecting with a care manager or, again, an aging services coordinator is a great first step, because building that support network is exactly the kind of thing that they can help with. So second, let's talk about legal documents. So there are a few key documents that every adult needs regardless of their age. And, you should have these things really like in place. So a will or a trust that documents how you want your assets distributed, a durable power of attorney, is going to be important, which designates someone to make the financial and legal decisions on your behalf if you're unable to. A healthcare proxy or healthcare power of attorney. Sometimes you'll hear that called power of attorney medical. The other one, sometimes you'll hear it slang called like power of attorney financial, by the way. But this one is going to be, yeah, kind of like I said, that medical or healthcare power of attorney. And that's going to designate someone to make a medical decisions. So, advice directives potentially, or somebody might call that like a living will. But that person who's over this category is going to be able to outline, those wishes for end of life care and medical treatment in situations where you cannot really communicate, your best wishes yourself. So if you do not have do not resuscitate in order for slang, again, slang terms, you're going to hear this called a DNR sometimes. Make sure that that is, clearly accessible and, and that again, like whoever's doing your medical care knows that you would, potentially want like a do not resuscitate, or you might want, them to be able to resuscitate you if something happens. But just make sure that somewhere that is documented and clear. We'll talk more about that in the safety checklist when we get there in a moment. But, for now, just knowing and having these documents, is not morbid, or it's not giving up, or, it's not woe is me, my life is coming to an end. You should have all these things in place really regardless of your age, not just, if you're older. It's one of the most loving things that you can honestly do to take care of yourself and the people who care about you, because, it means your wishes are known and your loved ones don't have to guess or struggle with the decision in the really painful moments, as your health continues to decline. What do you really want to do? What do you need to do? What would you have preferred, to happen? So, I think those are all, challenging conversations sometimes, but again, ones that absolutely, need to happen. And, I think are important conversations to have. So, thank you again for joining me for this part of the presentation. The next presentation we are going to do, we are going to go over like a home safety checklist, and then kind of like wrapping all this together from resources standpoint, and how do you implement some of these things, etc. So thank you for joining me today, and we will see you all next time.